I'm writing these lines as I hide in the basement of an abandoned shack in a remote mountain area in Oregon. I don't know if I can ever get out of here or if someone is watching the door right now. Everything started when I decided to take a shortcut to get to Portland to avoid the main road traffic. The road was dark and narrow, and surrounded by thick pine forests. I drove for long hours, and not a single car passed by. I pulled out my phone and called my wife just to hear her voice, to check on her and my kids. We talked for a long time about everything, as if we hadn't spoken in years. Suddenly, the phone battery died. After midnight, my tires hit a large piece of metal placed carefully in the middle of the road. It shredded both front tires. I got out, frustrated, trying to figure out what happened. The road was desolate, dark, and the silence was eerie. I was terrified of being exposed and finding no one to save me. I grabbed the jack and the lug wrench and started changing the damaged tires as fast as I could, desperate to continue my journey. While I was working, I noticed something unsettling. There were tire tracks, other tracks, heading toward the woods, as if someone had been watching me. And then, a beat-up SUV appeared from behind a curve and stopped right behind me. I didn't pay much attention at first. Two men stepped out, wearing work clothes. They asked me with an overly friendly tone, "Hey, do you need some help?" I felt a cold shiver down my spine. They were exchanging very uncomfortable glances. I tried to apologize, telling them I was fine, I didn't need help, but one of them stepped closer and snatched the wrench right out of my hand with a forceful grip. He said, "The night is dangerous out here, buddy. You can't just stay here." That's when I smelled it. A sharp chemical odor. I couldn't even identify what it was. And inside their car, I saw them. Iron shackles, sharp tools, small knives, meat cleavers, and steel rods. I'd just thrown randomly on the back seat. I knew then. They weren't right. They were going to hurt me. I panicked, thinking, what do I do? I stepped back slowly, and when I tried to run back to my car, one of them shoved me hard toward the woods. The other one grabbed a cleaver from their truck and slashed my remaining tires to make sure I couldn't escape. He whispered, "You're coming with us, and we'll send someone to fix your car." I abandoned my car, and I started running into the woods with everything I had. The tree branches were scratching my face, and the sound of their footsteps behind me kept getting closer. They weren't running. They were walking, slowly, confidently, like they knew the forest by heart, and they were enjoying the hunt, like I was just prey. I spent hours crawling through thorny bushes until I reached an abandoned wooden shack. I felt a tiny bit of relief, just a little bit of safety. I stepped inside and locked the heavy door with a rusty latch while I could still hear them. Outside, they weren't screaming. They were talking calmly, debating where I could be hiding, like they were just practicing human hunting as an organized hobby. I heard one of them say to the other, "Don't rush. This part of the forest is completely sealed off. He has nowhere to go." They were shining their high-beam flashlights onto the shack's walls from the outside, walking around slowly, testing the doors and the windows. I sat in the corner of the shack, holding my breath so they wouldn't hear me. I felt a terror tearing my heart apart. I was thinking, What do I do? How do I get out of this trap? My phone is dead. I can't call the police. What if they get to me? A reel of my memories flashed before my eyes. My wife, my kids, playing inside our small apartment. Suddenly, the reel stopped when I saw it in the corner of the shack, a pile of personal wallets, ID cards, and old watches from people who had vanished on this very road. My blood turned to ice. Will my wallet and my phone be left here too? They aren't monsters, they're just evil people who found this isolation a way to practice their sadism without anyone ever holding them accountable. I heard the sound of a small window breaking. Up above, they're in, there's no exit, and the darkness inside is suffocating. If you find this note or this message, do not take this road, and do not trust anyone who appears to you in the middle of the forest. At night, I can hear their breathing now, in the hallway leading to the basement. They show no mercy to anyone. Please do not stop if you see shredded tires on the Oregon backroads. My shift at the logistics company in Boise, Idaho had finally ended, and I decided to drive my pickup truck through the rough mountain roads to reach Reno by dawn. I was exhausted, but the urge to finish this drive was overwhelming. It was 3 a.m. while I was crossing Highway US 95, a lonely single-lane road cutting through a vast desert, when I suddenly ran out of gas, miles away from any station. The engine temperature was rising, and the darkness around me was so dense, my headlights could barely cut through more than a few meters. I got out of the truck, cautiously looking for a cell signal, but there was nothing. Suddenly, I heard an old engine approaching from the distance. I sighed with relief. I thought it was a rescue. An old Chevy pulled up beside me. A man stepped out, wearing ragged clothes, his face covered by a rough cloth mask like a muzzle. His eyes were bloodshot, like he was drugged, or hadn't slept in days. Fear started creeping into my heart and mind. He didn't say a word. He just pointed toward his car. I understood. He wanted me to ride with him. As a gesture of help, I hesitated so much, but the isolation was suffocating. We just stared at each other for 5 minutes. I was examining his eyes intently. I didn't feel like he intended to harm me, so I got in, after he insisted with an eerie silence. On the road, I noticed the speedometer wasn't working, and the man, he would tilt his head in such a strange way every time we passed under a streetlight. Suddenly, I saw an open leather bag under his feet. It was filled with broken cell phones, scattered wallets, and ID cards of people who looked like strangers. I froze in my seat. I tried to reach for the door handle, but it was locked with a special safety child lock that wouldn't open from the inside. The man looked at me through the rearview mirror. His eyes showed no expression. He just smiled, slowly, and his hands on the steering wheel started shaking violently. I tried to speak, to break the wall of fear. I asked weakly, "Sir, where are we going?" He didn't answer. He sped up, insanely, on the mountain curves. He started breathing loudly and sporadically, like someone suffering from a panic attack or suppressed rage. Suddenly, he veered off the main road into an unpaved dirt path. My vision began to blur. I felt a severe dizziness, and a strange smell, like chemicals, filled the car. I realized then something was being pumped through the air vents. I tried to break the window with my elbow, but it was treated with a thick plastic layer. I turned to face him, and I saw him pulling a long knife from under his seat and placing it calmly on his lap. The car finally stopped in front of a dilapidated wooden shack in the middle of nowhere. The man got out, leaving the door open. He walked toward the trunk. In that moment of shock, I gathered all my strength. I kicked the door with everything I had and popped the lock. Through the partially broken window I hadn't noticed before, I ran toward the dark forest without looking back. The sound of his heavy footsteps were hunting me. He was running, calmly, focused. He wasn't screaming. He wasn't threatening. He was just hunting me like a professional predator. I tripped and fell into a muddy trench. I tried to hide under a pile of dry branches. Minutes passed, and then I heard his voice, whispering with terrifying clarity near my hiding spot. "I know you're here. Everyone hides in the same place." He continued searching for me for hours. He was moving through the trees, slowly. He was shining a flashlight, scanning the ground, systematically. He didn't leave. With the first light of dawn, I heard a police siren approaching from the main road. I screamed with all my strength, "Help me! Help me!" I ran out of my hiding spot toward the sound. A police cruiser pulled up. I ran to it, crying, begging for help. I rushed in and sat in the passenger seat. The officer took his place behind the wheel. Before I could say a single word, I saw something that stopped my heart cold. The officer was holding the same radio I had seen in the shack. There was a long scratch on its side. The officer looked at me, then looked toward the forest where the man was hiding. He said nothing. He just pointed at the forest. In that moment, saw the masked man come out from between the trees and stand outside the car. The officer smiled at the man. Then he turned to me and said coldly, "You're still stuck in the wrong place, aren't you?" Terror flooded my soul. I tried to open the door to run again, but it was locked tight. The officer started driving. As we pulled away, I saw in the side mirror the masked man slowly taking off his mask. His face had the same wounds. I thought I had suffered in the woods. He looked at me in the mirror and winked before disappearing into the dark. Meanwhile, the officer turned the car around, heading back toward that same wooden shack. There is no way to survive. I am in their hands now, and I still don't know why they're collecting us. Last year, I worked as a night receptionist in a historic hotel in central Pennsylvania. It wasn't haunted, like the stories say. It was just a dreary, depressing place that smelled of old carpets and harsh cleaning chemicals. Working the night shift meant I dealt with some unconventional guests and situations that required nerves of steel. On a Tuesday night, a man in his mid-50s checked in. He wore an expensive suit, but it looked worn out, like he'd been wearing it for days. He requested room 313, a room at the end of a dark hallway, far away from everyone. He never asked for room service, and he never came out. By the third day, he was supposed to check out, but he didn't show up. I went myself to knock on the door, and when I got no answer, I used the master key. The room was completely empty, but it was suspiciously clean. The bed was made as if no one had ever slept in it, and the towels were folded with surgical precision. The only thing that caught my eye was a small notebook on the table. I opened it, thinking he'd left it behind, but what I read made my blood run cold. The notebook was filled with details of my daily life, what I ate for dinner, when I went out for a smoke break, even the specific coffee order I made during my shift. The notes were precise and dated down to the exact minute and second. This wasn't a ghost. It was a person. Someone who had been watching me, tracking my every move in that hotel. My chest tightened. Had he been in the hotel the whole time? I started reviewing the security camera footage in my office. And that's when I saw the real horror. The cameras never showed the man leaving the room. But they showed something worse. The man was in the footage, walking through the halls, wearing my own work uniform. He was copying my movements, standing right behind me in the darkness, while I thought I was alone. He was obsessed, and I realized I'd been living with a stalker in my own workplace. He's still out there somewhere, inside this massive maze-like hotel. After the incident, I asked to be moved to the maintenance department. I thought working in the shadows would be safer, but I soon discovered that the hotel itself hid human secrets just as dark. There was a hotel manager, a man of few words named Mr. Edward, who enforced strange rules on the staff. No one was allowed to enter the 4th floor without special permission from him, even though it was just a regular hotel floor. One day, the service elevator broke down on that floor. I had no choice but to go and fix it myself. When I arrived, I found the door to room 313, the same room that man stayed in, left wide open. I stepped in to make sure there was no danger. I found a massive library of employee files. It was filled with our photos, our life details, and even secret reports documenting our smallest mistakes. There was a file with my name on it. It had photos of me sleeping in my own apartment. It wasn't high-tech surveillance. There were photos taken with professional camera lenses from outside my bedroom window. Mr. Edward wasn't running a hotel. He was running an illegal monitoring network, targeting guests and staff alike, and selling their information to unknown parties. While I was looking through the file, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I ducked behind the curtains. Mr. Edward walked in, accompanied by a security guard. They were talking in low, hushed tones. Mr. Edward said coldly, "The former employee has started noticing too much. It's time to move him to the disposal list." I felt my world crumbling. I couldn't confront them, so I waited until they left the room. Then I snuck out like a thief, my heart pounding so hard I could barely breathe. I wasn't working at a hotel anymore, but I was working in a prison. My boss was watching me, and I knew now my life was in real danger. I decided to leave, but the hotel wouldn't let me go that easily. The next morning, I discovered my key card and exit pass had been deactivated. I tried to call the police, but the phone lines in my room were cut. I ran out into the hallway, only to find that every single corridor led right back to the 4th floor. The hotel was designed in such a complex way that escaping seemed impossible without management's help. I started running through the halls, trying to find an emergency exit, but every time I reached a stairwell, I found the doors chained shut. I saw other employees, but they avoided looking at me, as if they already knew my fate. I was the problem that needed to be solved. I reached the main office and decided to confront Mr. Edward. I found him sitting behind his desk, reading a newspaper like nothing was wrong. Before I could even speak, I heard him whisper, "You know you can't get out, don't you?" He said it like without even looking up from his paper. I was filled with an overwhelming rage, but it was a rage wrapped in total helplessness. Asked him why he was doing this. He replied coldly, "People think hotels are places to rest, but in reality, they are the perfect places to erase human traces. No one will look for you, because your family thinks you quit and traveled away." I took advantage of his distraction and bolted toward the office door, but he pressed a hidden button under his desk. An electronic lock slammed shut on every exit. This hotel was a place run by a powerful gang, exploiting human isolation to exert their power. I spent the next few hours hiding in the laundry rooms, listening to the security guards' footsteps as they hunted for me. I am writing these words from my cell phone after sneaking into a computer in the storage room. I don't know if I'll make it out alive, but I want to leave a trace. If you find this post, report the Grand Edward Hotel in the city center to the authorities. Do not go there, and do not work there. Reality is sometimes more terrifying than any fiction, because the monsters we face aren't strange creatures. They're normal humans, wearing elegant suits, deciding our fate behind closed doors. I hope my voice reaches someone before they find me.